how to overcome the top 10 objections you get in wholesaling real estate and how to overcome them. What's up, guys? Zach in here.
Rick in here.
And in today's video, we're going to break down the top objections you're going to see in your wholesaling business. And these are objections that you're not going to be scared to see if they're going to happen, but they will happen to you if you do enough experience in wholesaling. And we're going to break down exactly how to overcome them today.
It's not if, it's when.
Oh yeah. So let's get into it, guys. So before we get into it, guys, remember you need to smash that like button and subscribe, get the most free value from us, and let's get in the video. From no order from 10 to 1, let's just break down some of the top objections you're going to get. So here's a big objection most people talk about, and this is really not one we've experienced too much, but we see a lot of people very fearful that this is going to happen to them, and that's, hey, I need to see a proof of funds from you before I go forward. So if you get a proof of funds asked about you, best if you don't have the money for it, don't give a fake proof of funds letter. We see that all the time. Now, at the end of the day, it's probably best to show an actual proof of funds, but the only way I've seen really around this that you can make it legitimate is if you actually show your cash buyer's proof of funds, because technically they're your partner. And so, hey, this is my partner, this is his proof of funds, and this is who I work with buying the properties. And honestly, if you're upfront and transparent about it, that it's you and your partner buying the property because you're putting on a contract given to your cash buyer partner, you should be good.
And the key is to set that up in advance, not once you're going to meet with a motivated seller and then they ask you for a proof of funds. So just getting a cash partner doesn't mean you actually have to use them, but if you have it at least set, it'll help you out. And also, worst case scenario, lining yourself up with your own credit. If you got a good credit score, you could technically qualify for a loan that might get you through. And the other way is develop a relationship with a hard money lender. Once again, all these strategies you have to do in advance.
Oh yeah. Number 9 here is questioning. This isn't really like an outlandish, objection you're going to get, but this is an objection I think you should understand. These are questions like, who are you? What do you do with this property? When are you going to buy this property? Who's your title agent? Like all these questioning, like you're an interrogation from the seller. This is actually an objection, right?
So the key is don't take any of the questioning personally, just methodical and answer them one at a time and systematically. And you can use these questions to open up qualifying your motivated sellers as well too. So a lot of these questions you'll hear over and over. The key is don't look annoyed every time you answer them and just answer them, because the more questions you solve, the more likely you are to get a better deal.
Number 8 here is, hey, wholesaler, it's okay. You can go buy the property, and yes, I could agree to sell it at that price, but you're going to have to really see my attorney and talk to my attorney before we get going any further. Yeah. How do you answer that one? Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I need to speak to my attorney first before I sign this or anything like that.
So there's really 2 ways. So the first and foremost, a lot of people use the attorney objection as a stalling technique. It's common, it sounds scary, and a lot of times if you react to it frightened or why would you want to do that or anything like that, you now are in a defensive position as opposed to just, listen, they have the right to review it with an attorney. I agree with most of you, they don't really need an attorney, but remember, you're trying to get a deal. So the more you fight it, the worse it's going to get. Just make sure your contract is complete and your paperwork is thorough. And then here's one thing I do. What's your attorney's name? And give me their contact information. I'm happy to get them all the stuff.
Yeah.
That will cut through as if they're just stalling you or they're actually needing an attorney. Some of your clients actually want to review it with their attorney and you just want to make sure you do not write those people off as a stall. So ask them details about their attorney. Hey, which attorney do you use? Is it someone locally? Who is it? And just I'll even start naming attorneys after a while. If they don't have an attorney, it really means their objection is stalling.
Yeah, and most of the time it's a family friend or it's a paralegal that's like their third cousin once removed. It's really not an actual attorney, but it's definitely something that I figured out where if you fight it, it's never going to look good at all. You have to just be, okay, here, let the attorney go through it. They're always going to find something wrong with your contract. Even if the Supreme Court justice wrote your purchase and sale agreement, your local attorney is going to find an issue with it. Number 7, this is a big objection. This is probably one of the biggest ones you're going to get, when you give an offer to someone and it's going to be, hey, can you do 100,000? I don't know. I got to think about that. I don't know.
Well, to me, that's easy. So once again, that's kind of a soft no when you get that. And the idea is you got to walk them down the funnel of qualifying them. And so instead of just leaving it hanging off a cliff, you're going to have to direct a questioning. Yeah. And so you need to explore with it. So when they say, why do I have to think about it? Hey, John, what is it you need to think about it? What's puzzling you the most with it? And try to draw out at least an objection. If you don't get an objection, you're really early in the game and you haven't got to like the pain source. But when they say, hey, I have to think about this, just using a line is, hey, using the person's name. Guys, if you use the person's name at least 10 times during a conversation, you will get much further because people like to hear their name. Your school teacher showed that to you. So ask and rephrase the question. John, what is it you're thinking about? What puzzles you the most? And just be quiet and just see if they'll walk you in a direction, and that will help you answer additional questions to get you closer to a deal.
Number 6. So this is like you're talking to the seller and you're just trying to get some qualifying questions. And right off the bat, you get, what's your offer? What's your offer? And they won't let you breathe for air. They keep hitting with what's your offer like 5, 6, 7 times in a row. And they literally just won't get past it. How do you talk to a type of seller like that?
Well, you have to politely take control of the conversation back. And this is challenging because some people have dominating personalities. But you got to kind of just take control. So you actually have to ask permission to take control of the conversation. So you simply say, listen, John, you have all valid questions. And let me get through this. And I will answer most of the questions. If you have any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer them. Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Because it's like a machine gun just shooting like holes in you. You've got to get through it because it's like telling a story and he just wants the ending. If you can't get through the story, you have no ability to connect with him and you're never going to get a deal. So if they just want to get the price and they want to skip it, you're not going to get a good deal. So if just ask permission, hey, John, just do me a favor. Let me go all the way through it. And if you have any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer them for you. Does that sound fair?
Sounds great. I do that. Another one I do is always like, hey, Mr. Seller, have you ever test driven a car? Have you ever bought a car?
That's a good one too.
Would you buy a car without test driving? And of course not. Well, I have to know more about the car, more about the house, or maybe even go inside the house before I could really even give you the offer.
So you're politely asking them to be quiet while I finish my presentation. And then if you have any other questions, we'll get through it.
That's basically what you're doing.
Okay.
Now. Number 5 here. Hey, Mr. Wholesaler, sounds all good, but I really need to speak to my wife about that offer. I can get back to you next week.
So the easiest way to overcome this is when you're setting up your appointment is to really define who the players are up front. So I don't know about you, but like me selling the house without running it through my wife or having her part of the decision making is probably going to be detrimental to the negotiation. So if you ask who the decision makers are up front. Now, some relationships, one person makes all the decisions, the other one just goes with it. But there are a lot of relationships where it takes 2 parties to make decision. I've had as many as 6 or 7.
Yeah.
To save yourself the aggravation, try to do your presentation while they're all present.
Yeah.
It will save you a ton of aggravation. Because you ever had this where you tell a story to someone and then they tell it to someone else and they just extrapolate like the worst part of it. And your point never got through. All they got to is Zach offered me $50,000.
That's it.
And so like they skipped all the details of everything you're going to do. So the key is to try to prevent that situation is try to identify the players up front and make sure they're present. It helps out a lot. And then if you can't meet with both of them, unfortunately, it's usually going to require 2 presentations. Just make sure you have a game plan to take them down.
Exactly. Number 4 here, which is one of my favorites, is Zillow says my house is worth $200,000. Why are you offering me $140,000?
Well, that's why they call it a zestimate, I believe. But You know what, guys? The reality is you should go into every appointment knowing they just assume they look at Zillow.
Yeah.
And they're going to use it as a reference point. So the easiest thing is it's like cheating on a test. The reality is if you know the answer, you're going to utilize it to your best advantage. So I would know what this estimate is and prepare your argument ahead of time. Now, part of your argument is looking at the condition of the house.
Yeah.
If you're doing the right lists and stuff, these houses are typically not going to be in perfect shape. If it's not in perfect shape, it's an easy walk off of what that estimate is. So if the estimate says $190,000, I go, listen, I agree with $190,000 if the house was in perfect shape.
Yeah.
But kind of walking through and everything you've already told me on the phone and looking at it, I don't think we're in that situation.
Yeah.
And I just kind of walk off with it, and then you kind of go in your normal presentation. But when they go, listen, Zillow says my house is $190,000. And I agree. If you list it with a realtor and get it all fixed up and get it perfect, that you have a shot at that in 3 months. But the key is knowing what this estimate is before you walk in, and don't let them tell it to you. And but you guys know that's not the value. Sometimes it's just not accurate.
No, or you can even tell the story of like, hey, that's a great idea. You know, I'd love to buy it at that. Here's the cool part. Zillow actually used to do this. They used to buy properties at the Zestimate, charge you 10, 12%, and then they try to flip the house from there. And they went out of business. So if people bought up the Zestimate, they would be losing money.
Yeah. So you could say, well, you know, if Zillow wants to buy it at that, I'm sure. Oh, that's right. They don't buy them anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's all you really got to do.
Listen, Zillow is it's a simple, quick education, and you kind of move on. Most people kind of know this about Zillow. They've kind of accepted it. You've just got to separate yourself from it and give them an immediate answer on it. And once you overcome the objection, it never comes up again.
Exactly. Number 3 here is, hey, Mr. Rick Ginn, you know, that's a great offer, but I need more money. Or that offer is way too low. Or, well, my realtor said this house is going to be worth $300,000 if I listed it. These are just sellers that want more than what you just offered.
So there's a couple different strategies when you go about this. So at this point, I assume you're close to it. So say your goal was to buy the house at $100,000 and they're stuck at $110,000, which is quite common. Okay. You can do a lot of what if strategies when you do this. Number one is, a seller, if you fix up the AC and you finish painting the house and you put the kitchen sink back in, like I might be able to do that, but someone's got to fix all these things and there's just a certain cost of doing it. The other way to do it is if they're dead set on that 110 and you're at 100 and you know you already have profit locked up into it. Another strategy you can do is if they're stretching you out on price, you stretch out your contract. And what I mean by that, put in a longer inspection period and have someone come back, either a GC or somebody you work with, or even a legitimate inspector, and go through the house and let them walk you through why it needs a $15,000, $20,000 discount on that.
Yeah.
And then you can come back and soften them and go, listen, I gave it a shot at the 110, but like I have all these lists. You might even find out some other major stuff. I'm just telling you, if you can't walk them down on that price, go, listen, I'll do the 110, assuming that air conditioner's good, the roof's perfect.
Yeah.
The kitchen sink's not leaking anymore, and there's no termites or anything. So I'll have to do an inspection. Are you okay with that?
Most people aren't.
And most of them are like, oh, I don't really want the inspection. I go, well, you know, that's the determining factor. So worst case scenario, you do like an inspection like that, which might be a walkthrough with like you and your buddy. And he'd be like, listen, you got a lot of issues here. I go, listen, I can't do the 110. I just need out of the contract or we can reduce it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will go for that strategy, but sometimes in this business, you do have to play the game a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about off a retail number. I'm talking like you're just trying to get that, you know, last $5,000 or $10,000 on it. And when you're looking at that AC and it's like 15 years old and it's rusting and it smells, you know that AC is $5,000 to $7,000 to replace. So to me, that's the strategy when you do that. And then you can at least buy a week and see, like I'd put in a 7 to 10 day inspection period but you have to have someone go back and inspect it. Now, the inspector's job's not to negotiate with the seller. It's you to take that report and go, well, I didn't know about all this stuff. Like it didn't pass the snuff test. So we can do the 100 and maybe you get it like 102, 103 instead of 110. But you got to have a reason to separate from that price. Another one you can do if someone's completely stuck on the price is say, listen, whenever they say, I need to get this, I need to retire, I need to take care of my daughter's wedding, you have to separate from their needs and what the house can do. And a simple solution of like, hey, Zach, I understand you need the $50,000 to retire, but let's see what the house can afford to see what I can do. You've got to separate with like whatever fund they want to fund and do it, and understand there's got to be a fixed cost with the asset, and let's see what we can afford to do for you. I'll see the best I can do.
Yeah.
And the idea is remind them like, listen, I'm paying you on this house, not based on what you need for a retirement account or your daughter's wedding. So
agreed.
It's a polite way to remind them it only has to do with the house, not what your personal financial needs are.
Other objection is, hey, before you give me the offer, I'm just letting you know, just give me your bid and I'll bring up the other wholesalers around. Or they keep mentioning other competition, or they're like, okay, that's great, but I'm going to look at more offers and kind of see and just shop it around. What is your opinion on that objection? How do you overcome that one?
I can tell you this. If you hand over a contract without some sort of expiration or definitive deadline, you're typically going to get abused on it. It's just how the business works. So if you have to hand over a contract and you are stuck, make sure it expires in 24 hours.
Yeah.
If you don't have a call to action, it's going to take forever. And by the way, if you say 24 hours, I guarantee they'll take twice as long. If you tell them 72 hours, it'll turn into a week. Here's my theory is I want to be the first one in and the last one. So it's kind of like the saying in Talladega Nights, if you're not first, you're last. The reality is you can be both in wholesaling. And there's a little secret I've learned. If you go in a strategy and you were first there, it's like, okay, Rick, I like what you have to say. You're a stand-up guy. You have a proof of funds, everything, but I want to hear the other three out. Well, Susie, when you meet with the other three, she goes, well, they're coming by at 12, 1, and 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hey, Susie, I tell you what, do me a favor. Don't sign with anyone, and I'll swing by at like 2:40. Does that work for you? That way you can look at everything and you make a decision, right? Oh, Rick, that would be great. I could put everything together and I can kind of compare. Now, don't give them the contract, but you already know what they need, and you can set them up like, listen, just make sure they give you a proof of funds and make sure they're going to take care of you and make sure they take care of Zelda, your cat. And I'll get some little cat. And then you show up with like a little cat snack or something like that. So you can be first and last. I don't care what Ricky Bobby says. It makes a tremendous difference, guys. And then if you have to leave a contract and you're stuck, and it'll happen, make sure you got like a James Bond 007 where it somehow self-destructs. This offer terminates, and you got to make it very, very, very clear to them. And if they don't take you seriously, it's a waste of time.
Exactly. And then the top objection you're going to get when you give an offer is no. How do you go over no? No, I don't want to sell my house. No, I don't like that offer. Just generally a no.
Well, no's not bad, first of all, because sometimes no will save you a ton of time. The maybes and then I'll get back to you and the ghosting is what kills most wholesalers. Yeah. So I would just get back in and rephrase some questions to make sure it's just a hard no. Are they saying no to you? Are you saying no to selling the house? Because at this point, if you're physically meeting with someone or you're on the phone with them, you just want to decide if you're going to keep them on your list or move forward with them. Now, some of the strategies when I get a no is sometimes you can send in another partner, maybe the opposite sex. It'll kind of get you through, because like if I got you off of a probate deal and I already know you need to sell it and the house is run down and you don't want to keep it in the family, but you say no, I'm not taking you off my list. So what I'm going to do is regroup and probably send one of the girls in to try to see if they can get a better answer. Sometimes people just don't like you and they say no.
Yeah.
No is a lot easier, to my opinion, than just a maybe or let me think about it, because you got to find out if that's the truth. Just find out if the truth is no and just keep rephrasing the questions. Are you saying no to selling the house? Are you saying no to me? And just get a definitive answer. And there's always something more behind the no, I promise you.
Exactly. So that's it, guys. That's the top 10 objections you're going to get in wholesaling real estate and exactly how to overcome them. This is Zach Ginn signing out.
Guys, Rick Ginn signing out.
And have a great one, guys. Just remember, I can tell you this right now. If you're getting these objections, you got to dig deeper and push forward. That's where the real deals are.
Correct. Don't accept your first answer. You've come this far. Just ask better quality questions. And then, guys, remember, if you're struggling to answer an objection, you're new to it, a simple technique to buy you a little bit of time to use your brain is rephrase the question. And just what does that mean? Is when they ask, they give you a statement like, Rick, I just need a little bit more time. Hey, Joan, I know you need a little bit more time. What is it that you need to think about that's causing you to need more time? Just by doing the rephrasing of the question buys you a little bit of time so you can kind of think. So sometimes when we're pressed, we don't know the answer. You have to think on your feet. So rephrasing the questions and saying it back slow will help to clearly define the question and give you a little bit of time to use your brain.
Exactly. Guys, smash that like button and subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.
See you guys.
Thanks.